Thank you, and welcome back to Race Industry Week 2023. This is our last session of the day. We're going to be talking about the topics that Mr. Gilly loves, motorcycle racing, right, Brad? You on mute, Brad. We can hear you.
Sorry about that.
So.
There we go. Yeah, anything on two wheels, I'm a big fan of for sure. And looking forward to talking about World Supercross here in just a few minutes.
Excellent. And then we'll have you again for a few sessions tomorrow. And after that, you on to the NASCAR ceremonies. So again, it was a great honor to have you the last 2 days and a few more sessions tomorrow. And any things you want to share with the audience, Brad?
It's been really neat. Doing everything that I do in motorsports and following things and all of that, and seeing a lot of the news that's come out of Race Industry Week already, really just in a day and a half and 2 days, if you think about it, especially what we opened up with Steve Phelps yesterday and a lot of the things that he's talking about. This has become a very big news-making week as well, and it's coming right here from Race Industry Week.
Yeah, I've noticed that too, Brad. I mean, articles all over the place and people are sending it. So it's nice to see. And there's more.
Including NBC News, correct, Judy, if I'm right?
Yeah.
Now that's a big deal, and thank you to our partners at Racer and Speed Sport, because they help us reach a much bigger audience, and so being live on speedsport.com, on racer.com, on Speed Sport 1, and all those YouTube channels help us, and thank you very much. So we are going to be bringing Adam Bailey any second. I know he's on. I got a signal from a producer. So as soon as Adam join us on the panel, we'll leave Adam in your hands, Brad. So I don't know if Adam is in Australia right now, if he's in the States, but thank you for him to be joining us.
Awesome. Thank you, Francis. Thank you, Judy. And Adam, welcome. And look, I know you guys are coming off of a big weekend in Melbourne. So where are you now, and how was that great round?
Yeah, thank you. It's great to be here. I'm in the Gold Coast, Australia, which is where I live, just a couple hours flight north of Melbourne. But it's great. We had a fantastic event on the weekend. We had a bit over 40,000 people there at Marvel Stadium, which is Australia's largest indoor stadium. I mean, you guys in the States have many of those, but Australia only has the one big one there down in Melbourne, and it was fantastic. It was our best event yet, and definitely a big step forward for the championship. So we're really proud.
Yeah, definitely very thrilling to see everything that went on. Congratulations to Ken Roxon and everything else that we've seen. It's been pretty incredible. So tell us about 2023. Tell us about this year and how things have gone for World Supercross.
Look, I think, it's a brand new series and a brand new championship, and the FIM World Championship rights were held by Feld Entertainment in the US for 20 years, and they did an amazing job with it, to build the sport and build the brand. But for us to truly take it around the world and take it to other countries around the world is a big challenge, that's for sure. When you operate, and I've promoted events in Australia since around 2015, but to try and take something truly global adds a whole different raft of challenges, and we've definitely found that. And from country to country, there's different ones no matter where it is where you're going. So it's been a challenge, definitely. But one of the things we're just wanting to do is just build kind of credibility and momentum for the series. We've got some amazing riders and competitors, and the goal really is just to showcase this sport to new audiences around the world, not to try and necessarily do what is already being done in the US, but to take this product around the world, and we've managed to do that, particularly going to the Middle East for the first event that Supercross has ever had in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi, that we had at the start of November. Was amazing to see a whole diverse crowd there that have never seen anything like it before, motocross or supercross racing at this kind of level. They were blown away, and that was a really positive sign for us, that there is new audiences around the world that we can convert to supercross fans.
Yeah, I think that's really neat. And I cannot imagine what the logistics are like for all of you at World Supercross Championship, bringing everything that you bring. You mentioned Melbourne, Abu Dhabi, the United Kingdom, and all of that. That's one heck of a big show to be carrying around the world.
Yeah, it sure is. And I think you kind of underestimate certain things, you know, or challenges that you might have in a new region like Abu Dhabi, for example. I mean, in the UK, Australia, and US, you know, I think the business operates relatively, you know, similarly. But when we sort of go there and you have expectations in terms of the earth moving equipment you need to build a track and things that are the kind of simple things, I guess, here in Australia, are just not, you know, what arrived from the equipment standpoint, what we expected was not at all, you know, what had been asked for. And so our guys had to be flexible and build a track with equipment that they wouldn't usually do it with. And, you know, it just adds different challenges. There's language barriers, you know, so when in the heat of the moment of producing live television or, you know, the big screen broadcast for the live production and the show at the time, you know, people and maybe not necessarily able to communicate at the speed that they're used to, and that it makes it a little bit clunky at times. So just lessons, you know, you learn along about the sort of key people you need to fly around to be at these events versus who, you know, being able to use local suppliers. And there's a whole bunch of things, examples like that, you know, that we've had to learn on the fly this year for sure.
Yeah, and look, Adam, I know you've been at this for a long time, but you talk about starting something new right now, and as the CEO of the organization, just some of the things that you know today that you know, maybe you didn't realize when it comes to doing it the way you guys are doing it right now. What are some of the things that you learned along the way?
I mean, I think that there's a core group of people, you know, that you need to travel to these events, that you can't just source locally, like or the need to know the sport. Like there's people that you can bring in on the ground to assist with things that may never have seen Supercross, and that's okay. But then there's probably around 60 odd people that absolutely must go around, you know, no matter what country we go to, just because they've been there before, they understand what needs to happen, and you know, to be able to deliver on something like this, particularly. You know, Supercross happens in a very short window when you're coming to build, you know, taking over a venue, building an entire track, you know, bringing in all the production equipment, etc., and running the event and then getting out again within kind of, you know, 24 hours. You need people that that understand exactly what it is we're trying to do. So I think one of the main things is just kind of refining what that core group looks like, and as we go forward, we'll make sure that we bring those people with us.
You know, and it's great that you say that. It doesn't matter who we talk to and who we'll talk to this entire week. Everyone is always going to talk about the people, and that being the biggest difference maker and in their success along the way as well. You know, we were talking with Rick Ware earlier, one of course, the team owners in the World Supercross Championship, but 10 teams, 40 riders, and what you guys are taking around the world right now. Let's talk about that. The race teams and the athletes that you guys have put together. There's a lot of competition for some of the top athletes, and you guys have a lot of them over in World Supercross.
Yeah, for sure. And Rick's done an amazing job as you know, have all our sort of 10 teams. But I think one of the main, you know, challenges for them is to try and again get something new and contract riders that may already be with a different team in the US, or how that kind of dynamic works. We have some teams that race in the US as well as coming to World Supercross, which works well, like the PMG Suzuki team that Ken Roxon rides for example. They're able to kind of, you know, add Ken onto to our championship as well. So it's a challenge for them as well as for us in the infancy of this championship, when you're trying to create something that's global for the first time versus operating purely in you know, in country regions which is normally how it's run in Supercross, you know, with US clearly being the biggest. So got some amazing talent. You know, Ken is a fantastic showman and one of the most popular riders in the world, that's for sure. But also, you know, Colt Nichols, Joey Savacci, Shane McElrath, you know, Max Anstey. So really, Dean Wilson, Justin Brayton, really popular, diverse group of riders, you know, that are commonly known in the US. But there's also a bunch of riders that you know, from Australia and in Venezuela, and we've had Brazilians and many French riders, and we're trying to welcome. We want it to be truly global. So it's also brought some new talent to the surface that might not have been known otherwise.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, I do want to remind anyone viewing right now live, if you do want to ask a question in the chat, you're more than welcome to. And Adam, we just had one come through. As someone who works in U.S. Supercross, I love what you're doing overseas. Is there any chance for another Middle East race next year? What can you tell us about 2024?
It's definitely on the cards. We've been talking to a couple of different Middle Eastern regions, since we started the project. So I think, as a motorsport championship, you can't ignore that region. I think we all here know that the Middle East kind of underpins, Formula One and MotoGP and international, motorsport championships. So we definitely will look into that. We've had quite a few discussions, and that the success of that event in Abu Dhabi definitely helped, seeing again, it was 7,000 fans in the Etihad Arena, which, in the US or Australia would be very small, but in the Middle East and a completely new region like that is actually quite a lot. So that's been really helpful to grow in that region. But we aim to have at least one, maybe two events in Europe. Where South America is hugely important to us because there's so many motorcycle sales there, and it's underserved when it comes to Supercross. Brazil in our research has the largest amount of Supercross fans in the world, but there's no international Supercross standard events. So there's a couple of markets like that we'll definitely be focusing on to try and get it to around 6 events, 5 to 6 events next year is the goal, and we hope to have that sort of locked down in the next 30 days.
Wow, that would be great. And when you're looking at events, how much of this is looking at regions? How much of it's looking at venues? How much of it is maybe driven by sponsorship? And you talk about a lot of motorcycle riders down in Brazil. You've got some great factory teams that are out there running in the World Supercross Championship. Are they knocking on your door saying, "Hey, we sell a lot of motorcycles down here. What can you do?" Maybe moving some events.
Yeah, it's a combination of all those things, to be honest, and it kind of depends on. I guess we're looking at strategically what's the best for the series and the sport, to move to help grow the championship, and what would be strategically great moves versus also what's commercially viable and successful, also, which is important for the business, obviously, as well. So I think, on one end of that spectrum, you have, say, Japan, for example, with the manufacturers, being based from there, or so many of them. And then the other end of that spectrum, you have the Middle East and places that commercially, make a lot of sense for the business. So, and then there's a whole bunch in the middle where you've got kind of potential for government funding, and host city funding, which is very important for an international championship like this. And then others where sponsorship may be stronger, like you said, like Brazil, due to the fact that there are so many sales there and strong brands that operate in that region. Australia is like that too. There's very strong brands here and that like to market and be involved in Supercross. So yeah, the answer is that it's not a simple one. It's probably the most complex thing of what we do is trying to figure out how to pull a series together on the basis of a combination of, commercial viability, but also strategic importance, I guess. So that's the tightrope we're kind of walking on a daily basis, I guess.
Wow, that's a lot going on right now. Adam, a lot of great people in sports will say that you make your season in the off season, and I know you're just coming down off of a big race weekend, and sometimes it would be nice to say, I just need a couple of days to exhale. But typically, as soon as you wake up the next day, all of a sudden the wheels start turning for what's coming up next, and it could be anything from event ideas to sponsorship. What are some of the things that you're working on? What are some of the immediate things for the World Supercross Championship that is more of a now thing as opposed to maybe I can look at that a month from now thing?
Oh, well, I guess for us immediately is reporting on what's just happened, pulling data together, providing that to our government partners, particularly in Visit Victoria in Australia, to try and to report back on the results of what's just happened, producing a bunch of content and highlights and sponsor deliverables and things like that we want to make sure that we maximize all of the amazing content that was captured over the weekend. But then, as you said at the start, really working on next year. I mean, we had an hour and a half long board call last night, really fleshing out what's next. What do we need to do? What resources do we need, and where around the world do they need to be based? Because that's the other thing, there's being international, being in Australia for all parts of the business doesn't make a lot of logistical sense. So, where do we need to base people to be able to be as efficient as possible to build the series quickly for next year? And it's all about trying to get that calendar locked and announced as soon as possible. That's our number one focus for next year.
Yeah, I have to compliment you guys on the multimedia content that you've already pushed out there, whether it's directly on the website, on YouTube, and the fact that it doesn't matter really where you are. You've got a great subscription service to be able to watch these events live in different tiers of the subscription service as well. How can you tell us about how that's gone for you guys? And is that a model that's really working in the way it's set right now?
Yeah, I think it's our strategy is kind of very similar to Formula E in the sense that we just wanted to get eyeballs on the series, which means that rather than sort of chasing revenue at this early stage, we want to make sure that we can be broadcast on as many linear channels as we can around the world to maximize the reach and the eyeballs. And we have FS1 in the US, which is amazing for us. It's such a well-known and prestigious network. So, but then we also have and we have 7 in Australia, which is great. And DAZN, which is a well-known sort of paid subscription platform, and Eurosport in Europe as well. So there's many networks that we're sort of broadcasting us, but we also wanted to create our own platform just to make sure that for anyone else that slips between the cracks, that they can always watch WSX live. And so WSX.tv we created just as that streaming platform. And it, I think it's gone very well, but as with anything, it can be much better. There's a lot of refining to do. We're proud of our broadcast, but I wouldn't say that we've hit the peak. We definitely want to continue to improve and make sure that next year it's even more seamless and even more eyeballs. So, part of that is just getting that schedule locked down and announced nice and early so that people know when to tune in, and that's really important. Next year's season will be a lot more condensed around the kind of October to November. We want to put all kind of 6 events within that 2-month kind of period, or 2 to 3 month period, and that'll help us get the visibility because it's off season for any racing in the US, so no clashes with anything that's happening there, and at a time of year that we feel like people are hungry for racing. So we'll try and serve them during that window and do the best job possible.
Oh, that'll be fantastic. And we definitely look forward to hearing about that. Sponsorship. What's it like, number one, selling sponsorship for an international sport that's racing on several countries and continents? And what's the market like out there for WSX?
I think you hit on the most difficult part is being international, because most brands operate, on a regional basis, and you have, obviously we have fantastic support here in Australia just because we've had events here, and a lot of relationships here. But, the manufacturers, being Honda, Yamaha particularly, are hugely supportive in Australia, for example, but to have that support in the UK is a completely different subsidiary, completely different relationships. And, you kind of have to start from scratch. So I think there are some brands that extend, globally that have been great for us. I mean, GoPro, for example, is one that's a truly global brand and seems to operate on a global level. But I think how we do well out of sponsorship next year will depend really on what regions we lock down, and then trying to attack that on a region by region basis at this stage. I think, like I said, that most of the brands operate regionally. So for us, we have to build new relationships in new regions and somehow tie them all together, which is one of the biggest challenges, like I said at the start, commercially, to make this work. It's quite fragmented. So you're trying to pull something together and give it a global umbrella, which wasn't there before for this particular sport. So it's a challenge, but we're definitely up for it.
Yeah, for sure. As we look ahead, you've already talked about expanding the schedule. You want 6 events next year. What are some of the other growth opportunities for WSX?
I think across all pillars, there's opportunity. I mean, being global means that we can introduce new fans and new eyeballs, and with that, global merchandise sales and obviously the sponsorship and new brands. I genuinely believe we'll be able to attract new brands into the sport over time. Whereas it's an American sport, and Supercross has had so much success there that but that doesn't mean that there aren't other countries that are going to love it. And I think the event in Abu Dhabi really proved that. So I think there's no simple answer. We're just going to continue to push and learn and do everything humanly possible to make this what we believe it can be, which is kind of like a MotoGP for dirt bikes in the stadium. I guess that's the plan.
Yeah, one great thing about Supercross and just the sport in general, but also how you guys are doing it with WSX from an event perspective, whether it be starting out the day with the pit party to practice and nice elaborate opening ceremonies, live entertainment, and all of that. How does that translate around the world. You know, the fan in the UK, the fan in Abu Dhabi, the fans in Australia. You know, does the same event structure work everywhere, or do you look at things and say, hey, maybe this is going to work in Abu Dhabi, but it might not work in Australia, and that might not work in the UK? How does that work for you?
That's a fantastic question. And I think the answer is some things, but not all. And that's part of the learning process. I mean, in Abu Dhabi, for example, we completely changed the event structure so that the night program, or the actual main part of the show, was only 2 hours rather than 3, just because the local promoter partner there, Athara, which is the same promoter of the Formula One event, they felt that maybe the local fans at a 3-hour event would be too long. So we therefore changed the qualifying procedure, put the heat races earlier in the day, so there was actually no crowd during the heat races or the Super Pole qualifying. And the things that we would normally do as part of the main event, we changed to keep it really short, just for families and things, so they could, and we made it earlier in the day because they felt that, for families and kids, if it went into kind of 9:30 p.m., which is our normal finish time, would be too late for them. So, I would say we made those changes, but we probably didn't need to. At the time, they were actually captivated, and I think we're probably wrong. Well, Thara probably made the mistake to think that they would be bored after 2 hours, because they certainly weren't. So I think, but we are going to have to adapt like that in new regions and be ready to try new things. And UK is very much the same as Australia. They seem to be really loud and into it in the whole pit party experience. They get there early, although they kind of probably head to the bar first and then show up. Whereas in Australia, they probably go to the bar after the event. I think the Brits are kind of used to, that's their culture, is they'll go have a couple of beers before the event, and then they make a whole night of it, which is cool. So I think it will change from country to country, and we're going to have to be ready to adapt and bring in sort of local cultures into the show and make sure that that's respected as well. Like I said, it's not going to be just an American championship delivered in the Middle East or an Australian championship delivered in the Middle East. We have to bring in some of those local cultures and things that entertain the local crowds as well.
Yeah, that's what amazes me. What I love about what you guys are doing, just because it is so international, and no matter where you're watching it, to be able to also get that international feel. It's not just watching a bunch of wonderful Supercross riders running around a course. You sort of get the sense of where you are and where you're doing things. A question from the chat: what are elements of Supercross that make it so engaging for the younger demographic? And we want to keep bringing all the little ones in and make lifetime fans out of them.
Yeah, I think Supercross lends itself perfectly to bringing in families and kids and younger audiences. It is I think it's a fantastic combination of motorsport, which has its fan following, but also show and entertainment, family entertainment. So, if I was to try and explain it to a newcomer, it would be like, a motorsport event combined with a Monster Jam, for example, which kind of means that like a Nitro Circus show, which means that the kids can be engaged again, regardless if they know who the racers are. So, I think that's a huge opportunity. And being in a stadium means that you can wrap all other kind of entertainment aspects around it, being live music or the pyrotechnics and lighting and all the things that give it a kind of concert feel, with an amazing motorsport property that you can see the entire race from your seats. I think that the challenge, obviously, that circuit racing has, and I've been to many Formula One and MotoGP events, is that you can only see the short section of track, and you end up watching a lot of it on the screen, whereas in this, you can see the entire track and the entire race from your seat, which I think is good. So I think why it's attractive to young people is all those elements. It's a bit of a sensory overload, but then also it's very short and sharp. The races are kind of 6 minutes to 7 minutes each, so it's very quick. You don't have time to get bored or confused with what's happening. And I think that's an important way to keep the young people engaged at this stage. We don't want them sitting on their iPads when they could be there watching live Supercross in front of us. And I think we do a good job of that.
Oh my gosh, and you're right about that, and just the way the formats work, the way the races work, and I agree with you. The stadium environment is just phenomenal. Getting back to the team structure, Adam, 10 teams, the 40 riders. Is that what works with World Supercross? Is there room for expansion? Where do you guys settle with that?
That's a great question again. I think at this we're reviewing that as we speak. I think what we really want to do though is build value in those teams so that, if we have, 10 teams, it really is designed to be like a Formula One type model, which is then we want to help build the value of those teams. So by doing that, scarcity is the number one way to do that. And we want to make sure that, so we're not going to just continue to introduce new teams. Instead, we want to figure out how we service the ones that are there and perhaps introduce new partners to join with them and support them. If manufacturers, want to continue to get involved, then how do we connect them with those existing team owners and those 10 licenses? So the plan is really just to grow with that 10 or introduce new ones. If any want to sell, then there's the opportunity for that to happen too, and trade in and out of those licenses. But ultimately, the whole plan is to lift the value of those 10 licenses so that we have 10, really quality global teams competing in the championship.
Yeah, and look, I think it's a great structure for everything that you just mentioned. I also look at it and think from an event management perspective as well. Such a known, saying this is what we're going to have, and this is what we're going to be bringing to every country, every continent, and the way that you can manage the show. Because ultimately, like you said, if you needed to shorten a show for this region, or if you wanted to do this or whatever, all of that becomes manageable. To me, it seems like you're able to put on a much better event with that as well.
Yeah, totally. It is. And it's actually it's creating a really cool community around what we're doing. Like I think that, and whilst, it's a fine line because you don't want everyone being all buddy that competes against each other, right? Like you want there to be some fierce rivalries and battles and controversy and there's plenty of that. But it is creating a cool sort of community around these men and women that are traveling around the world, to race in the series. And it's unique because you're bringing all these different cultures and countries, together, traveling around. And it's quite a close community of people that are all obviously love the sport and have a lot in common. So it's creating this cool little community and vibe around it. But ultimately, I think that, we need them to be passionate and enjoy what they're doing as well. I think this kind of small group definitely helps create that community, which I think is really important for us all to move forward together.
Yeah, I agree. And the competitiveness as well. And if you question that, just go back and look at some of the highlights from your events from just this past season. And it's really incredible. Adam, congratulations on a successful year. And more than anything, I actually look forward to a year from now, looking back at this conversation and seeing just how far you come with the World Supercross Championship. It sounds like there's a lot of great things ahead.
Yeah, thank you. No, I really appreciate it. There's a lot of great things ahead, but a lot of work to do. So there's definitely no rest for the wicked, as they say. We'll be working hard between now and next year. I should have a few more grey hairs by then. I'm imagining.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, and great job. This is a brand new series. You build it from scratch, and it's amazing what you have done. So thank you very much for being with us, and thank you to all of you watching us on Zoom, but also on racer.com, on speedsport.com, on Speedsport 1 TV, as well as on our different YouTube channel and social media channels. This is the last session of the day.
Registering on ePartrade is easy. To start, click on the Join for Free button on the homepage. First, search your company to see if it's already in our database. If you see your company on the list, click on it to select it. Then, choose Claim Company if you are one of the decision makers, an owner, marketing person, or main company contact. Or choose Join Company if you are an employee, and press Continue. If you couldn't find your company in our database, select Register a New Company. On the following page, fill out your name, email, phone number, job title, and choose a secure password. If you chose Register a New Company, you'll need to choose your business type. Select Supplier if you're looking to display products or services and connect with buyers. Choose Racing Business if you're looking to source new parts and connect with suppliers. Choose Race Team if you own or are a member of a professional race team. Then, enter your company name. Please provide a website, Facebook page, or LinkedIn if you have one, and choose to either claim or join the company. You can view and agree to our terms of use here. If you'd like to receive our weekly newsletter, choose Accept. Finally, click Register Now and your registration will be submitted for approval. An email will be sent to your inbox. Please confirm your email address and you will be approved shortly. Welcome to eParTrade.